welcome to the demonstrating implementation excellence stream of SNOMED Expo 2020. For those in the room who don't know me yet, my name is Ian Spiers and I'm a terminology education specialist at SNOMED International. I'll be moderating today's session. All questions will be answered at the conclusion of the presentation. Online attendees, please use the Q&A box to ask questions. We have a microphone here for those personally within the session. I'd like to introduce Anna and Daniel. So they're going to try and stay on the stage together as best they can. And I'll let them introduce their topic. So
thank you. So my name is Anna Rossander. I'm from Sweden. I'm employed by the regions and I work with SNOMED CT in the region where I work, but also on a national level in what we will call the NAG in this presentation.
And my name is Daniel Karlsson. I work at the National Board of Health and Welfare in Sweden, which is the Swedish National Release Center for SNOMED CT. And yeah, we will be mentioning this a few times today.
That's what it's all about. Okay, so it worked when you tried it previously. It's not working now. It is. Okay, so this is just a short agenda of the presentation. We're going to start about what was the setting when we started this work and how is it, how was the evolution and where are we today and our experiences and recommendations.
So this is a map of Sweden. That is the Swedish flag. This will be on the exam afterwards. Sweden has it has kind of a distributed mandate when it comes to healthcare. There are 21 healthcare regions. There are private providers as well, mostly publicly financed. The healthcare regions are autonomous. They have taxation rights. They could do whatever, almost whatever they want when it comes to healthcare, and that creates kind of a challenge for collaboration and sharing and like we're here for interoperability and you get the picture. There is today a limited use of SNOMED CT. That means that it's used in a few specific use cases. There it's sometimes it's even heavily used. But we're not seeing a wide use of SNOMED in the electronic health record yet, but we'll get there. Swedish NRC is funded by the national government, and yeah, we will talk more about that later on.
Got it.
So, we were when we were creating this presentation together, we wanted to start with some of the drivers that we have. So, what are the drivers from the National Release Center, and what are the drivers from the healthcare regions? And for us, we always struggle, and I guess most of you do, with access to the domain experts. So managing a terminology like SNOMED requires a lot of clinical expertise, and that's always a challenge. We wanted to give support for our users in an efficient manner. We wanted to have like an efficient dialogue. Like we have a lot on our plate, we want to share the burden of maintaining and developing the extension, and we want a good way of educating our users. We want our users to be more involved and learn more, and like having a positive spiral, ever increasing quality in the use of SNOMED CT in Sweden.
And from the regional perspective, we needed a shorter turnaround time when we started working with electronic health record systems, and we needed new or changed content. We needed that to be pretty rapid to keep up with the software developers. We also wanted to have a national coordination of the SNOMED CDUs where that was possible and agree with each other what terms to use where. And we needed support in tricky questions, and we ran into problems. We needed answers about implementation issues. So the triggering was VGR, which is the Västra Götaland region where I'm employed. We started an implementation of a new electronic health record system about 3 years ago. And we thought we would use SNOMED CT in this system. That was our idea. And we realized we would need more SNOMED CT competence and workforce than the NRC could provide. So 10 informaticians in our region took an extra instance that SNOMED International offered of authoring level 1 course. That was the one that was available at the moment. And then in the spring of 2020, the cooperation between the VGR region and the NRC started. As that work was trickling on, there were guidelines published both on medical recommendations, but also documenting recommendations saying or pushing more for SNOMED than previously. And more of the other regions, of the other 21 regions, they became interested in what VGR was doing. And they also wanted to have this possibility, and they also wanted to have the access and discussions with the NRC. So the regional group was sort of evolved to a national group. And that's the one called NAG, which is the Swedish abbreviation. So 2021, approximately in the spring of 2021, the NAG was formed, and it has representatives from all of the regions. They're all invited, and it also has a project coordinator from a Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions, a very long name, which is like an umbrella organization for all of the regions. And one of the initial participants from VGR was elected chair of the group. So there are some people here today from this group, Ayla, and me and Erica from Salar. That's it, right? And the people from the NRC as well. Do you also want to say hi? Yes.
Yeah.
So you're the majority here today.
That was the plan for later.
Was it for later? I'm sorry. I thought it was for now.
Yeah.
This is what happens. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so at the moment, this may be later. So we're 9 members, and so 2 of us are here plus Erika. And we allocate 8 hours a week. That's the idea. And some of us do more, but at least 8 hours a week for work within the NAC. I think Erika has a little less, 4 to 6 hours a week. And recently we also had members from Angira, which is a company owned by this national regional organization who deliver healthcare platforms for interoperability within Sweden. So they're also in the loop. The members of the group have a varying level of knowledge. Obviously, since it's from all of the regions, everybody has not taken authoring level 1 course, but at least foundation course. And it's a knowledge sharing group. But those of us who have access to the authoring platform have all taken the authoring level 1 course. And sometimes we also delegate work to external parties like the original VGR employees who have taken the course and are in the authoring platform, or other people who have knowledge that we need. And the VGR region also continue in parallel to work in the authoring platform. So we collaborate via Teams, like everybody else these days, on a Teams site hosted by Salar. We have meetings every 3 weeks for 2 hours, but we also do quite a lot of work in between in smaller groups or, online works. We have 2 primary tasks, 2 types of tasks, where one is developing supporting documents. So if we get many questions from the regions regarding some topic, for instance, we've been on to assessment scales and we've been talking about synonyms and how should they be made, then we try to gather the knowledge that they need to answer that question in some sort of document, so it's available for people. It's in Swedish though. And the other type of task is actually terminology binding issues, support with choosing concepts or modeling new concepts or adding terms or doing things in the authoring platform as well. So there's like 2 different types of work.
And now the National Release Center, and I will give you, so now you could raise your hands again. So Lottie, Emma, Erika, Päivi, and Niklas is here too, and they will happily answer any questions also, and I will too. So there are currently 7 employees. We have different competencies in the group, and you could see the list there. What we do, among other things, is to manage the translation. SNOMED CT is close to fully translated into Swedish. with exceptions, but those were meant to be there. We have an extension, 3,000-ish concepts right now, which we hope to promote eventually. We work with quality assurance of the extension. We give user support for implementers, and we coordinate the international collaboration that we have today, and because that we participate in some of the groups and so on. So we did actually prepare this very well, but this is last day of a 7-day continuous, so we have online meetings every second week. We talk for 45 minutes. Sometimes we need more than that. So we're discussing authoring tasks that need discussion. We are developing some joint guidelines. Those are up for discussion at these calls. And we also try to look at our common workflow and see if there is any need for updating of that workflow.
We showed that to you in the
Yep.
So
some examples. We are discussing modeling issues. So one of the early projects was around surgical procedures, and we discussed the pros and cons of having combination procedures stored as concepts, whether actually putting those as two different concepts in your system. So that's an example. We're doing batch additions, changes to our translations of adding synonyms. We had a discussion about at one stage. I'm not going to point any fingers, but they were concepts for durations, and we recommended against that. There are perfectly good information model solutions for that, and so on. We also discussed how we could collaborate, or maybe even better, if we could tap into their expertise when it comes to creating promotion requests to the international edition.
So this is the workflow that we've discussed when it comes to working in the authoring platform. So that part of the work that is actual modeling. So these, I don't think if you can see them, but they're screenshots from the authoring platform. So I did a demo task just to show you that if one of us wants to do work, we do a task and we submit it for review, but we name it it says NAG in the start of the task name. So this is a key to the NRC that they shouldn't look at it yet. So we have an internal review round first. And when two of us agree that this is reasonable, then we unassign the task and we rename the same task, but with SOS, which is the abbreviation for the NRC in Swedish, or for their authority. Not going there. And then they review it the normal way with the thumbs ups and everything. And when that's okay and reviews are complete, then we promote it. So we're using the authoring platform. It's just that we have this little extra loop. And we use the comments. So, and if there are comments in this first revision phase, then they will remain in the task for the next person to see, oh, okay, you've already discussed this and there's a good reason for this or whatever. So we also we went through different types of jobs that could be done in the authoring platform. And we said, who does the modeling? Who does the review? And what's the target time? And there's actually only one case where the second proper review can also be done by the NAG, and that's where it's a misspelled Swedish term. So that's the only case where people from the NAG can on themselves just push something through all the way to the daily build initially, and then to the Swedish extension. All of the other ones, the modeling is done by the NAG, and then there is this second review by somebody at the NRC. And the target times are a bit different. The shortest is 3 days. That's the misspelled term. And I think the longest for these is 14. And then there's a longer duration for when it's an international concept and CRS stuff that takes time. But sort of this is around the area with the time duration it takes. And that's the big deal when we're working with the implementers, that they can say, we need a new synonym here, or we need a new concept. And we can actually come back to them within a few weeks and say, yeah, this is it. This is the code, as opposed to waiting for the formal Swedish extension release and everything. So this is just some results of what we've done so far. So content-wise, for these 1.5 years, we produced. This is the ones that the final hand in the authoring platform was from the NAG. If some of the NRC people have been onto the task afterwards, it's, I think, for instance, like all the batch changes, they're under Daniel. So they're not in this. But we made 181 new concepts and 489 change descriptions. So I think it's not nothing. It's quite a lot. We've also published some guidelines, and actually, since we made the slide, the published ones are still published, of course, about the synonyms and abbreviations. And there's one on how to use SNOMED CT when you start with something that includes other and unspecified. This is a favorite area of confusion. But then the one that's under development is actually published as of yesterday, I think, assessment scales, what concepts to choose and how to model new concepts for assessment scales. Note, though, that there is another document not finished on the legal situation about assessment scales, and that's pretty tricky. So that one's not finished yet. And also administrative terms is an ongoing work. And as some of you have realized, when Päivi and I have been running around talking to you about this, we are working on patient-friendly terms and how to manage that in the Swedish extension.
So some of the experiences, overall, the collaboration works very well. We have found that these NAG members. So we had so many NAG jokes when we were. So they have been good at nagging their colleagues in the healthcare regions about SNOMED and being good ambassadors. From the regions, having being used to some of the competitor terminologies, alternative terminologies. They're not competitors, of course. They appreciate the flexibility of terminology like SNOMED. The NRC has helped, the NAG has helped the NRC in doing some of the work on our backlog where we struggled to find time, or where we needed the input. The chat forum on Teams hasn't really taken off yet. But that might be something to come. Some of the difficulties. So this is a new development for the regions, kind of like, well, we've been members for quite a while. We're constantly facing new things. There's some noise there. We're constantly facing new situations. So I guess there's been enthusiasm has been great on, I guess, both sides, compared with lack of experience, I guess, also from both sides, because we're facing new situations on a regular basis. That had led to an underestimation of the complexity of the task. So things tend to take a little longer time than we might have thought in the first place. Promotion of concepts to the international, we still have a kind of a backlog of things that we need to promote, but we've struggled to find time. So we went from I think we were maybe 5-ish authors at the NRC, and we doubled that by getting the authors from the NAG. to be like giving them access to the modeling environment. I think to make that crystal clear, we are managed service users, but I guess the same applies to whatever tool you're using. So quality control becomes an issue when you're expanding, like getting new authors into the system. So that is something that we need to work with. Getting access to clinical expertise, still kind of a challenge. I guess it's a challenge for everyone, but this hasn't really played out. It had played out in different ways than we expected. We are producing some guidelines now, but whenever you produce and publish something, you also faced with the problem of maintaining those guidelines. So we're realizing we're building on this this responsibility for the published guidelines, and we need to keep them up to date.
Yeah, so this is our final slide with just some conclusions. I think you're not going to be surprised that we say that they are overwhelmingly positive. We think this has been a really good thing. NRC can deepen their collaboration with SNOMED CT users by actually giving access to the tooling. And the SNOMED CT users who invest in education to use these tools, they benefit from that. And the usefulness of the SNOMED CT extension can improve when the users are more engaged in developing it. And the balance between perfection and performance, which was sort of what Daniel talked about just now, is probably best managed by open discussions and feedback. And that's why we have these fora regularly. So yeah, fire away with your questions.
So thank you, Anna and Daniel, for a really interesting presentation. I like the fact that we've provided some team building as well by putting regional and national on a small podium, and they have to remain on the podium but also present. So I think we've added to the team building, but it just proves they can work as a team because neither of them have fallen off yet. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask at all?
Thank you. So great presentation. Thank you for that. How do you get clinicians involved? And particularly, how do you get the right clinicians? What I say is that get the right person so that they don't get criticized or demolished because, well, they weren't the right one.
Yeah.
We haven't sorted that. That's the easy short question. But the NAG is not like a group by its own. It's part of a bigger national working system. So we have some contacts there, but this is still early forming. We haven't got all the process in place yet. But that's the idea, that we can use this other national groups. For example, there are other NAGs that have a clinical focus. This has the SNOMED CT way of looking at it, but there are other groups that have like cancer or eating disorders or whatever. And hopefully we can use them, but we haven't come that far yet. So far, I'd say we're still cheating and using like clinical competence that happens to be in the NAG, because some of us are clinicians, or using like somebody, which is obviously has the risk of running into that problem that you're describing.
Yeah, so we also, being the National Board of Health and Welfare, we do have our own ways of getting access to clinical expertise, because that's what we do. But so when we have simple, so we had, I give an example. We had a very simple example. How many fingers do I have? So in SNOMED, the answer is 4. Yeah. In Swedish, it's 5. Like that's a simple question. How many fingers are there on the hand? And we sent that to, because that has implications for the translation of SNOMED. We sent that to the NAG-like thing with dealing with yeah, to the group that was working with to the movement.
Surgeons?
No, they yeah. Yeah, so yeah, yeah.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So those were experts in the number of fingers of the hand. And they gave us an answer, but that was a simple. If you need, like, for some of the questions, you actually need to know both the clinical stuff and the SNOMED stuff. And there are not that many.
No.
There's only a few available, like nationally. And so, yeah, it is.
This is one of the things that we hope that we can, I think, try to connect people and be that little bridge between the NRC and the regions. We hope so anyway. Was that answer to your question?
And
ish.
Even more when, like, the more implementation that we get of SNOMED and the more, like, kind of like visibility we have, we anticipate that there will be more interest also from the clinical side, not just us like reaching out, but them reaching out. And that has already happened. Like, you could, like, ICMP was a big thing for us, where actually the nursing community reached out to. So that, yeah, so it's a complex issue, but it could happen in multiple ways. Yeah.
So
these are some examples.
Thank you. I think that's it's nice you used a digital example there. I don't know if that was deliberate or not. I was quite intrigued that you've used the authoring level 1, and it's great pride that it's been useful to encourage people to do authoring and be value C. So the question is, often does the authoring level 1 provide enough for that starting point? But bear in mind that you also have authoring level 2, which is more demanding and may cover things that you don't think authoring level 1 does. And just as a caveat for that, sometimes people do authoring level 1, but they're never going to be authors. So you have to bear that in mind, that some people may not be in the NRC and may not end up being terminologists. So you have to try and keep it not too heavy and still a bit simplistic, so people can have an understanding of authoring, if not being terminologists.
I think when we took, when I went authoring level 1, and when that group of 10 people did it, there was only authoring level 1. I think you've actually moved parts of 1 to level 2 since then. No? No. Okay. That was a shame. Well, it's when you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to say you don't need to know it, right? So far, I think we haven't made any like major catastrophes without doing authoring level 2. Probably it would be better if all of us doing the authoring work went through authoring level 2 as well. That's what I would guess. And we would just have to put the time and effort into doing it. What do you think?
I agree. This is actually not something that we've discussed yet. I think so we have NRC staff which have taken the authoring level 2, and I guess we will think, so what are the requirements for authoring, and we'll just have to have a discussion and get an agreement on what's a reasonable level. So when we started this, there was only 1. So yeah.
And then maybe we should instead also say, if you've only taken 1 only, then you can only do this type of work in the authoring platform, because otherwise, if everybody has to do authoring level 2 to even like add a synonym, then we're making it very complicated. So that will be an option as well.
So you saw this this table, so that might be amended with different roles. Currently, the authoring tool doesn't support different roles, but there is ongoing work, at least so I heard, to assign roles to users there. So that might be another way of resolving these issues.
So,
yeah.
Great, so thank you. And I'm glad that what we're providing gives you that starting point, and that, you know, through discussion, I think in authoring, often it's through practice and discussion that you become a better author.
That's right.
So thank you very much for the presentation. And for those people online, that's the end of the session. So please go to the lobby and join another session later. So thank you once again, Anna and Daniel.